Do you remember the 2012 Super Bowl where Eli Manning and the Giants got off to a strong 9-0 lead by the end of the first, before Tom Brady went psycho at the end of the second and beginning of the third, having basically two back-to-back touchdown drives to put the Patriots in the lead at 17-9? Well, the reason I'm talking about that game is because of how it ended, with Eli leading New York down the length of the football field in less than 3 minutes, and ending the drive with a 6-yard handoff to running back Ahmed Bradshaw. And I say all of that to say, this was the last good thing to happen to New York football, because after the 2012 Super Bowl, the Giants and Jets would combine for one playoff appearance, which was a blowout wildcard loss to the Green Bay Packers back in 2016. And this is where we'll begin, with both teams not coming in earshot of the playoffs for nearly half a decade. First, let's go with what happened to the New York Football Giants. And I want to put a lot of emphasis onto the 2017 offseason for the Giants specifically, because in a matter of one season, they went from a strong 11-win playoff team to a bottom-of-the-barrel team who only managed to scrape together 3 wins the entire year. Let's start with the unpredictability of that year, as throughout the season, the Giants would lose core members Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Marshall, and linebacker B.J. Goodson to season-ending ankle injuries. By the end of the year, the Giants had a total of 20 players on the injured reserve. And another reason for the Giants' downfall was the amount of players they had suspended, which included the likes of corners Janoris Jenkins, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, and Eli Apple. It truly seemed as though nobody had respected head coach Ben McAdoo in the locker room with everything going on, especially Eli Apple. Dude did not like him at all. Which leads me into my next reason, which was all the firings that took place throughout the year. Because in early December, the Giants fired both their GM and head coach. That meant you could say bye-bye to GM Jerry Reese, whose firing was long overdue, and previously mentioned coach Ben McAdoo, who failed to have this offense produce much of anything. And McAdoo's biggest mistake, however, was the handling of benching star QB Eli Manning. Because with Eli's skills on the decline, McAdoo offered to let him play in only the first half of the Raiders game, then let Geno Smith finish it. Manning obviously declined, saying it wasn't fair for him or Geno to do that. So McAdoo said, screw it, I'm gonna bench Eli anyway, except this time it's gonna be the entire game. And this led to McAdoo getting fired. And another big reason to why the team was garbage was because of the fact that GM Reese didn't address O-line issues during the offseason, which wasn't the best idea, because players like Eric Flowers and Bobby Hart struggled that year, and the line sustained multiple injuries, which forced Manning to run for his life on nearly every play that season. And after that atrocious year, Manning would play one more season for the Giants in 2018 before retiring, and the team would slightly improve to 5 wins, in large part to rookie RB Saquon Barkley. Though for the last 4 years, he's been the only bright spot on the team, except for the fact that he's been injured half that time. Especially because Daniel Jones has been stinking up NYC since 2019, with the only play I remember of him being where he trips. Anyway, let me sum up the Daniel Jones era with one word: disappointment. Dude hasn't lived up to expectations, and he's probably going to be gone after this season. Time for the Jets segment of the video. And again, we'll head back to the past. This time in the 2016 season, where in 1 year, the Jets went from one of the very few teams to ever win 10 games and miss the playoffs to a 5-win team who finished last in their division. Sound familiar? Yeah. This time, the reason for failure was pretty different. Number one being the offense and defense performance the year before were once in a lifetime and probably unrepeatable for most of those players. Take Ryan Fitzmagic, for example, who threw for the most touchdowns in a single season in franchise history with 31 TD passes. But in 2016, Fitzmagic went back to Fitzpatrick, because his record as a starter that year was 3-8 while throwing 17 picks and 12 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, 2015 Darrelle Revis may have been one of the best corners of all time, allowing coaches the ability to run exotic blitzes that take other offenses off guard. But with the regression of players like Revis, Muhammad Wilkerson, and Sheldon Richardson, the team couldn't do those crazy blitzes like before. But before we move on with the video, just make sure to like and subscribe. Definitely not edited in the last minute because I forgot to record this part or anything. Anyway, let's get back to the video. And it's also important to mention that the team's red zone coverage went from best in 2015 to the 22nd worst in the league in 2016. And the next reason for why the Jets were bad in 2016 was garbage time, which many people tend to ignore when they look at any stats from previous years for any sport. But anyway, after Fitzpatrick and the Jets went to Lucas Oil Stadium in 2016 and got their asses handed to them in 41-13 to be exact, Todd Bowles would decide to officially pull Ryan for the rest of the year and decide to start Bryce Petty for the rest of that season to give the young guns some real PT, even though Fitzmagic probably gave them the better chance to win. And finally, the one thing these teams had in common as to why they sucked is because of something as simple and obvious as injuries. All the guys I'm about to list are starters that were placed on the aisle that season in Eric Decker, Breno Giacominni, Marcus Gilchrist, Nick Mangold, Brian Winters, Ryan Clady, and Geno Smith. This would all lead to a big roster purge for the Jets in 2017, same as the Giants did in 2018. Though instead of drafting a Daniel Jones, the Jets would draft their own version of that in Sam Darnold, except he only lasted 3 seasons. And they've already replaced Darnold with Zach Wilson. And the reason all these QBs with so much potential out of college continue to fail is because they aren't put in positions to succeed. Come on. Both of these teams purposefully decided to be bad at one point with the idea that they could just build it back up again over time. Yet this hasn't been the case for either team because both organizations have people at the top with power that don't know how to build a good football team. If we're being honest, this is why New York football sucks. Do I know how to build a good team? Of course not. I literally even haven't finished high school. But it's not my job to. It's Woody Johnson's, Christopher Johnson's, John Mara, and Steve Tish's job to find people who know how to build a good football team. And until they do that, New York football will be bad. Trust me. Goodbye.